Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Paul Menard, Marketing Manager here at Atombeam. I'll be the host for today's session. First, we'd like to welcome the team. Would mind going to the next slide? So today we're joined by Charles Yeomans, our CEO, Julian Dursey, Chief Product Officer, Cody Martinson, President of the Neurpac Division, who we'll introduce on this call, and Nadine Alum, our Chief of Staff. And Nadine's actually going to get us started with a quick agenda.
Right. And welcome, everybody. Good to see you, sort of.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see so many people on this call today. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to start off with going over the Start Engine raise and explaining to everyone, where we are on that and when we're going to be able to unpause and continue fundraising on Start Engine. The second part is actually what we're excited about the most. It's just joining of Cody Martinson, who's going to be the new president of the Neurpac division. We're going to have the opportunity to hear from Cody directly during this call. So that's coming up next. And then uh, very anticipated news and waited upon information. I know everyone is really excited to hear about what happened at NIWIC with the PCM demo. So I know it was pretty inconvenient that the Start Engine raise kind of had to be paused for a bit while everyone was waiting for the information on what happened with NIWIC and Proposers Day at DARPA. Um, we will go through that in detail today. And then we're going to talk about the patent portfolio, how we are developing on the patents, and the Neurpac sales pipeline. And then at the end, as usual, we're going to open up for Q&A. So you can start dropping questions into the chat now, and we'll save up during the a conversation, all the questions to the end, and then I'll be going through those, and Charles and everyone's going to be helping answer the questions. If you do have a specific question for like Cody or Julian or for me, please specify, and then, Cody can handle that question or Julian and so on. Yeah, Paul. So the Start Engine raise. I have a feeling a lot of you are aware that the Start Engine raise is paused. The thing that's going on is not a serious matter. We do not anticipate it to take longer than, a couple more days. We're reaching out and hearing from the auditors who are working on this almost daily. The pause in the Start Engine raise is attributable to um, a, I'm going to say, a missed deadline and an SEC filing. So it's not something that is going to create a major issue, and this is not what we're expecting. I know, Charles likes to give everyone the direct information. It was attributable to an expense that was misallocated between 2025 and 2024. So the auditors have their process that they're working through, and that is taking a little bit longer than we expected. So the reason for the pause in communication that we had to do when we found this out was because of, what our SEC compliance attorney had told us and what Start Engine had told us. So initially they were like, okay, you guys have to go dark and you're not allowed to fundraise. You can't communicate until you get this filing, and compliant with the SEC regulations. So as the you know developed communication with the auditors, it became apparent to us it's taking a little bit longer than we had hoped. Initially, Charles had reached out to everyone thinking, hey, it's going to take a day or two till they audit this footnote. But it is taking a process because the auditors have their process that they have to go to. There are like I believe a 5-tier star auditing firm, which they have their committees that they have to run through that, before we can actually get the raise back up and going and file the 1K that we missed the deadline for. They have to get their approval processes through. The company is working diligently daily, trying to rush the process, but it is a process. But I want to kind of assert that, I don't want anyone to be concerned. We do have, the situation handled, and I mean, Charles is pretty vocal about what is going on, and he wants to be direct and honest with everybody. But we are anticipating that the raise will be up hopefully by next week. But we can't give an exact ETA or timeline on that. I don't know if Charles wants to add in a few words, but this
No,
is
I think that's all it is. I mean, basically there were a couple of payments that were made in 2025 that were for 2024 expenses, and they got allocated to 2025 financials, and so they have to come up with a footnote. And that's what happened. And so they have three different committees, I think it is, at the auditor that have to pass on making sure that it's okay just to do a footnote. That's it. And, I'm not very happy personally about how long it takes to do a freaking footnote. So, but what can I do? It's beyond our control other than pressuring the hell out of them. So,
But personally, it's upset a lot of us. But we're working with them and we're trying to get it launched as soon as possible. And it's amazing to see that, we have so many investors that follow us on StartEngine, kind of like a daily routine. So, we're appreciative for all of your support and patience during this time.
I can imagine the boatload of questions that are going to come back of the line, but that's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I anticipate, hopefully sometime by next week while they get through their process. No promises though. We can't. I
Yeah,
guess I can't. Although I look like I'm in a space time zone in my background, I cannot tell the future. So I can't give you an exact, accurate, estimation of when it's going to be back up.
okay.
So, the patent position, PCM has 253 pending, allowed, and issued patents. And the total portfolio between PCM, Neurpac, and the other experimental technologies is 571 patents. This is, and then why it matters to you. Patents are a deep tech company, how it protects its work. So this is actually one of my favorite subjects, and I got to realize how important this was yesterday during a call. Charles and I had a meeting with a physicist and his CEO. So they're a two-person team. Someone, I guess the physicist is a very smart person who realized that the way towards AI is geometric, and that's how he has been researching and building and theorizing and writing papers and things for the past, he said, I think 4+ years, right? This is how long he's been working on this theory that he's been putting together. And long story short, he told us, well, my method of protection has been trade secret. Okay, so trade secret, for those who don't know, is something that you keep a secret and you're hoping that no one else develops it and comes to that conclusion of this invention independently. And if someone does come to the conclusion of your experiment and your theory and your work independently without trying to steal your patent, your secret, um, the rights and the claim of right to the invention belongs to the person who independently um, invents it and finds it and patents it. So I'm saying this is my favorite part because we had to have that conversation with him yesterday, and I had to be very direct with him. I said, we have 571 patents around our technology. And he said, well, I have a trade secret. So then I said, keep your secret to yourself, which was a very, amazing point to make to him. And I said, I don't want to know your secrets. Keep them to yourself. I don't want to have to do any workarounds for, you know, me finding out information about what you're working on in geometry and AI because you want to keep your information to yourself. So this is really highlights the importance of our patent routes. There's a lot of smart people in this world. Eventually, and Charles is going to talk about what he found out at DARPA and their conversations at DARPA. But eventually, I believe the conclusion is going to be geometric AI is the next step towards, artificial intelligence. So It was a really great moment, and Charles was on that call,
And
and I was on that call, and it was pretty cool.
And a really good, an important point here. So as I think everyone knows of that 253, because we just embedded a year ago, there's a whole lot of ones that haven't been published, haven't been issued, et cetera. But about 40 some have been. He's seen those and he says, well, I would have to license your technology in order to do what I want to do.
He said the only way for me to continue my research is to license from you guys or join your team. And then we asked him to send us a non-secret write-up so that we can know what he's working on, so we can figure out how we're going to take it from there. But it was a really great moment.
Yep. No, and it goes to show the moat works.
Yeah.
All right. So let me take this next one because I want to tell everyone about this plan. So we don't know, we haven't established a time frame for this, but it's probably a couple of weeks or something after we get going. What's going on here is, and look, and I'm not saying don't worry about revenue or something with Neurpac, but I am saying go out and take a look and see what valuations that are happening with startups in frontier model companies. That is to say, not some agent or something like that, but a company that has a frontier model, that a basic, kind of an LLM or a World Cup model or whatever. What are the valuations those guys get? $1 billion is the bottom. All right. And those guys, for the most part, don't have squat. They have an idea and a guy who used to work at OpenAI or something. And that's really valuable and everything, but it's still, it's a long way from having a working model like we have. And yeah, it's early. It's not a product. It's a prototype and 253 patents and a team already built. Small team, very small, but it's a real team and this is a real thing. And we've demonstrated it actually works. So when I look at it, I'd say, okay, we're raising at roughly a 400 million valuation at $15. The most we can increase it is 20% without refiling with the SEC. So I think that our plan needs to be, and we need to talk to StartEngine and blah, 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 but there's no reason why we couldn't bump it up to, it's a little less than 500 million in the $18 a share. But we want to give everybody a chance to jump in when we get going again so that, our faithful following still has a chance to buy in at 400 million valuation rather than 500. So, and you add in all the stuff we got going, and I'm going to tell you about the Navy thing. I'll tell you about DARPA. This is like, what we're talking about here is something that is going to blow it all up. I mean, this is a huge deal. And I think it's worth a lot more than $1 billion, but it's a question of what we can get. But at the same time, especially if we get a DARPA contract, then the blessing is there. And now we're talking about, I would probably want to shut this down and double it. And we're already in dialogue with one of the biggest funds in the world about interest in investing in PCM. So this is a chance to get in an evaluation that I think is freaking cheap. I'm supposed to say a great value or something, but that's what I think. Anyway, okay, without further ado, let's talk a little about the division idea. So what we said was like, look, we have two different organizations doing two different things, and they have different foci. If you look at Neurpac, what's that about? It's about driving revenue. We have a product now. It was, I think everybody knows that, we had a SaaS, nobody wanted it. We built the on-prem. The on-prem was released in January, the general release. So it's a real product. And you're going to hear from Cody here in a second on what he thinks about the situation and all that, where we are with it. And you're going to hear from Julian on where we are with the various, prospects. Now, if I look at PCM, it's a very different situation. You got some scientists who need to be herded. They've got a prototype. It's the focus is things like white papers and building the next prototype and all that stuff. It's a different set of ideas. And so, and not only that, the institutional investors that come into these, they're either going to be interested in Neurpac or they're going to be interested in PCM. They're most likely not interested in both. And if they are, then okay, they could either invest in two different subsidiaries or they could invest in the parent. But most institutions don't want to invest alongside of thousands of shareholders unless it's public. So the net is we have this idea and we're making it happen right now. It's not a subsidiary. They're not separate subsidiaries. It's a division. But we did a lot of work here to think through this thing. And we brought in Cody. He was very heavily, as he will tell you, very heavily interviewed. He is a tough guy. He's a guy who focuses on, what's important. And what's important here, as he will agree, is revenue. So without more ado, I will introduce Cody and you can talk, please.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Can everyone hear me okay? Good afternoon, and happy to be here. Pleasure to meet everyone. As Charles mentioned, I joined the company last week as president of Neurpac, and with the remit of really refining the go-to-market strategy and bringing Neurpac to revenue, while scaling the sales, engineering, and product management teams. We'll heavily focus the remainder of Q2 on the sales strategy and moving our current sales pipeline to closure. I had the opportunity last week to meet the engineering team face-to-face in Boston. I spent a lot of time with the team leads and I walked away very impressed. A lot of talent, a lot of years of experience. I've been around R&D and engineering teams for over 25 plus years. And I can say from a planning to development to quality assurance, the team has things really buttoned up. So I was really appreciative to meet the team face to face and get to know everyone. I also got a chance to discuss the product roadmap, and I can say I'm excited for the upcoming features that we're going to be adding to Neurpac. There are some very cool ideas that will be a part of the product in the near future, which will not only enhance the product, but will also make it easier to deploy and operate. So with that, I would say in summary, I was very pleased by what I observed, and I'm extremely excited to work alongside the team going forward in the future.
Great.
Charles?
Thanks, Cody.
Yeah.
And we will do a Neurpac focused webinar. And after Cody has had a little more time to get his
I appreciate that.
right, get a little oriented. He's been around for a week and here he is. So at any rate, but he has certainly jumped in, and even before he did, he built he has a whole plan around exactly what he's going to do. A lot of it is just drilling down and finding out things, but I think we can all feel pretty good about the direction this is headed. Part of it is too is that I think we really need a really strong operating guy to manage that, and especially the focus on revenue. And he's that guy. He's built a company from scratch with absolutely no outside money, figuring it out, dollar one. I got to tell you, that's the hardest thing. He built it up to 8-9 million revenue and sold it. And so you don't do that without a lot of focus and knowing what the hell you're doing. So we're very happy to have Cody aboard.
Spot on, Charles. Well, thank you.
Cool. All right. So now I'm going to talk a little about, get a couple of slides here on what we're doing with PCM. So first thing is everybody is interested in what happened in the Navy demo. So at NIWC. So just first quick backgrounder here. I think probably everybody here knows what PCM is, and I'm going to assume that. And, probably is aware, Neurpac is kind of the research arm of the NAVWAR, the Naval Information Warfare Systems Command. The Navy has like 5 or 6 systems commands. There's NAV Air, it's about airplanes, and NAV Sea, it's about ships, and etc. NAV War is about information systems, so communications and intelligence stuff and stuff like that. This is their research arm, NIWC. So there's a NIWC PAC and a NIWC LANT. NIWC PAC is long been focused on trying to build this command center of the future, an AI assist to a commander out in the field or out, embarked on a carrier, making decisions and making war as required in the situation. And so when we went in there, that was the context. We had seen there's a video. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's called Sea Strike 2043. That's what we went in and imitated. It went over super well. They were tough. They really grilled us. But we came through and they were all smiling at the end. And we are now moving to ACRETA, which is this cooperative R&D agreement. Both, they don't give us money for that, but that they want to do some testing. They want to see it work. They want to see this. They want to see that. So that will be, the usual government speed. It'll take 2 months to get the CRETA done, and then they'll probably spend 2 or 3 months testing, and then they're planning to move to a contract. They are also connected, working with DARPA. So just really, that's the quick and dirty on that thing, on that Neurpac thing. I got to tell you, I breathe a sigh of relief after that. That was like freaking intense getting ready for that. But anyway, so we got there, we got through it. And some of you know Alex, she's done a live stream. Alex got really sick a week before and was sort of out of it. And so we ended up having Brian pulled him out to have him do it, and I did it. And Adam Becker was there, and Dave White was there, and we managed. But boy, it would have been a lot better. It would have been a lot easier. It worked. Net is it all worked. But man, it would have been better. So for me at least. So anyway, so DARPA. One of the key guys that makes the decisions for DARPA and contract awards for this AI business was there at the NIWC briefing. He's like the number 2 guy. He's the contract officer representative, or the core. And so he's a key guy in this whole thing. He loved it. He came up and was effusive afterwards. And then we heard from the chief of staff at DARPA for the program manager, the big guy that makes the ultimate decision, that, the next day I heard from that chief of staff who said, I heard that NIWC went really well. And he got that from the core, right? And so this is all really good. Then we went to a proposers day. Now before, in this last month, we were at DARPA. They had us come back 3 times to talk to them about the program, about this they call it a BAA, a broad agency announcement. It's kind of an RFP. They wanted to drill down and understand it. The program manager had said, we had already decided that geometric was the only way AI is going to work for us. We can't have hallucinations. It has to be very few traces. It's, got to be light and work on the edge, various things. That's key. So those things absolutely have to be true. And he said, on that basis, we can't do anything other than geometric. We know this. And we haven't seen anybody who has a viable geometric solution other than Atombeam. And so very encouraging stuff. And in the proposers day, the team there, that was me and Alex and Admiral Becker, were surrounded by in the cocktail hour afterwards, because it was just a listen to thing in the thing. But in the cocktail hour afterwards, they kind of surrounded us and just kept talking and asking questions. And one of them, the chief of staff, told me that the program manager had read the white paper that we had sent. They had asked for white paper and we sent it. And they said that that the program manager had read it in detail multiple times and had worked through the math and is still very excited. So that says it's standing up. So we now are waiting for the BAA to come out. They said very soon, and last week when we were there. So I don't know. Could be out today, could be out tomorrow, could be out next week, soon, because they want to close this up and make an award we believe, in August. And they told us that it's 8 figures, that is 10 million or more. Rumor is it's 20 plus, but we haven't seen anything, but we were told by the staff 8 figures. So a sizable award. We're not talking a few $100K here. We're talking about, serious money. And just as important from any perspective you want to name is the endorsement of DARPA. DARPA is the most cutting edge organization in the government for defense tech. There's nothing more prestigious than getting a DARPA contract. And no, we don't have one yet. I'm not saying we do, but we're sure getting a lot of really good signals. And we were surrounded, when we weren't talking to the DARPA staff, by organizations, including some pretty big ones like Booz Allen, who want to partner with us, who want to team with us on this contract. So they're perceiving that we're going to win, and they believe that, and consequently, they're on it. So that's DARPA. Now I want to talk briefly about what we've done here to build the first prototype of PCM. So, and I want to contrast that to what it took to build the first prototype of ChatGPT. So what did OpenAI have to do? They had to build a new AI architecture. They had to think about what to do. So they formed a company in 2017, and they spent a year, and they raised about 133 million. They had 80 people working on it, and they came up with GPT-1, which is pretty much equivalent to RI1, Research Implementation 1, of PCM. We spent about 9 months. We spent about 2 or 3 million, including all the patents, which was the majority of it. We averaged about 4 people in the process, and now we have 253 patents. They had virtually none. They still have very few. They have maybe 40. And you heard from Nadine already on how important these freaking patents are, especially in the current situation, which is it's more competitive now. There's tons of companies trying to build AI. So, and I want to emphasize too, we have a prototype today. You're going to have to get a significant cash injection in order to build out a product. But if you look at what the values are here, you'd say, all right, how much is Neurpac worth? With some revenue, I think it's worth a couple $100 million. That's my guess, and don't hold me to it. But if you look at what PCM could be worth right now, today, there's tons of guys out there. Look around. If you just type into what your browser or into an AI model, what are the most recent fundings of frontier models in AI? And what are the valuations? Billion, 2 billion, 32 billion, etc. Those are real. And so when I say I think this could be worth $1 billion, I'm not kidding. I'm not basing that on fluff. Go look yourself and do the research. Okay, so on that basis, I want everyone to understand this enters into the slide a couple of slides ago, why we think we should raise the price here. Now, again, we're not going to do it the day we restart, but we'll give you a warning. But bottom line is, I mean, I'm very convinced this is a freaking bargain. All right, so without more talking, I will turn it over to Julian, who's going to talk about the pipeline and our partnerships that we have going with Neurpac.
Thank you, Charles. Yeah, I mean, what we're doing with PCM is really exciting. But sort of back to Neurpac and what we're doing here on the ground. So in terms of where we are at and how we're advancing, I mean, for a while people have been asking, are we making progress with our commercial engagement? So yeah, we're still continuing with our DOW contract with Space Force, SDA contracts. We are also continuing and expanding more with our existing partnership with Al Amrani Universal. They have successfully migrated. So although Charles said no one wanted to buy Neurpac SaaS, Al Amrani and Universal did buy Neurpac SaaS, and it was our only customer. But and they bought it because at the time they were able to accelerate data transfers they were doing overnight down from 12 hours down to 3 hours. And for them, that was already a massive win. And you can imagine if you do a daily transfer of 12 hours, it's becoming very uncomfortable because if something goes wrong, then you don't have much time to recover. Now that they migrated away from Neurpac SaaS and to the new Neurpac product, which we can also call the compaction tunnel, which give them more flexibility. They've recently reported they're now down to 19 minutes. That's how much more efficient the new solution is. The efficiency is giving them through the new efficiency. So they were very happy. We obviously will be working closely with them to update our data sheets and have that use case prominently exposed. They have also been trying out Neurpac in other conditions. One of the key use case that we were very interested in testing is the sort of the kind of the migration of workloads. So imagine you have an application running on a server, and you want to say move it from your on-premise environment to a cloud, or say you actually want to copy it and replicate it all the time. That's called disaster recovery. As you can imagine, Saudi Arabia, disaster recovery is very important. And so if you should your data center become inoperational, you want to be able to continue to operate and serve your customers. Just to remind you, Al Amrani Universal primary customers are banks and retails. They are the biggest supplier of ATMs in the country, and they also have about 20% of the point of sale markets of the credit card devices. So it's very, very important that those systems continue to operate whatever happens. And in terms of this disaster recovery, we have deployed the new Neurpac tunnel, and so that requires very high throughput between data centers, and we are able to accelerate the replication of these application servers from one side to another by 2 times. It was done as a POC. As a POC, it's not a perfect product for production. But their internal IT team is very keen to continue to work with the POC, even though we did not intend it to be a production deployment. So we are working with them very closely to see how we can accelerate what are the key things we need to fix on the product so that it can operate seamlessly without them needing to worry about it. So very big kudos to the product, to the engineering team that delivered the performance. And we are going to also turn that into data sheets, and that will allow them to expand and resell the solution to other partners and in the region. and they'll be using themselves as a reference case. But we will also be using them as a good reference for other engagements that we have. And similarly, in terms of application replication, workload replications, we are engaging with companies, service providers that provide that types of service over here in the US. They also have seen some initial very, very good results. And so we are pursuing that as a sort of market segment where we know we can bring value. Another aspect, you probably remember, we've announced at the end of January that we signed an agreement with Trilliant. And so we've been progressing our engagement with Trilliant. And so much so that we now have two very clear use cases. The first one, which will not come as a surprise, which is the AMI 2.0. So Trilliant is a provider that provides to the utility sector and more specifically the electricity grids. And they provide the smart metering. So what they do, they deploy all the smart meters, the network connectivity to gather the information from all the meters deployed out there, and then gather that information they collect, and then allow the electricity providers, the distributors, the operators to collect that information that Trilliant has been collecting from the metering. What's happening with AMI 2.0 is the amount of data that has been collected is going to multiply. We're moving from measuring the power from every 50 minutes to 32,000 times a second. So you can imagine the scale and the amount of data that generates. This is AMI 2.0, and this is where a Neurpac will become critical to compact that information and allow that information to be used. Why do they want to do that? And they want to do that because with now all the new types of power consumption from electric vehicles and the increased power consumption overall also from data centers, but also the supply coming from solar panels, wind turbines, these supplies do not behave in the same way that we normally used to. So it's very important to be able to gather a very fine-grained information to be able to operate these electricity grids. So that's very important, and we've done some recent evaluation of the content of the data around AMI 2.0, and they are now very convinced that they need Neurpac, and we're also very, very pleased to share that with them. Now you think, okay, AMI 2.0, that's not going to materialize until next year. But we've also worked with them. We are also going to provide them with the ability to use Neurpac as is today, to also compact the data that's being transmitted between the Trilliant head-end system and the customer's back-end system. So those electricity distributors and suppliers, they need to collect the information for sending you bills, or they need to collect the information to know what's going on their network. All of that information they have to draw from the head-end system. We will be able to compact it, so we will be able to get that information faster to them, and also at reduced cost, and especially when operating over cloud. If you're operating over hybrid cloud, you may not realize, but the cloud providers, generally speaking, they make it free for you to send the data in, but they make you pay to get the data out, and so that's always a very sore point. And dropping the data by a quarter to a quarter of its original size can reduce your egress bill. And that egress bill can be very significant in some cases. In terms of other partnership, I recently, in fact, being based in the UK, I went and presented to the DXC Oracle practice of DXC at the Oracle European headquarters here in the UK. So you may ask, who is DXC? So DXC actually is a very big sort of IT services company. You may remember EDS. In fact, I used to work for EDS, all those back in 1997. And EDS was Electronic Data System. It was a company that spun out of the IT arm of General Motors. So they are very automotive focused. And so DEDS was bought by HP, and then HP divested the sort of EDS arm and merged it with CSC, Computer Sciences Corporation, then formed DXC. So DXC is a very, very significant partner. When I presented to them, and the theme was around automotive and utilities. And so when I presented the applicability of Neurpac to the automotive use case, just to give you an example, electric vehicles have thousands of little battery cells. Each battery cell gets measured for voltage, current, and temperature, and these measurements are critical to ensure safety and also health of the battery. That information, it typically is managed locally in the vehicle, and it's measured at a high rate. If that information could be taken off the vehicle via cellular into the cloud, it could be correlated across multiple vehicles and further improve the lifespan of batteries, reduce the risk of events of overheat that may happen in batteries. So that's a kind of example that I was presenting, and all of these are backed by papers that have been published. They were super excited, so much so that at the end of the presentation, the DXC sales and the solutions engineering team essentially, well, first of all, they all came to me, and I did the old school using business card, and I ran out. I had a whole pack of business card, and they all flew away within 30 minutes. Oracle and DXC have come back to me, and they now want us to deploy Neurpac on Oracle Cloud on the DXC platform, and they want to have it deployed so that they can easily trial it with their customers. And so they've asked for a trial agreement, and they also asked for a partnering agreement. So we're doing that with DXC, and we're also separately also working with Oracle, and they have other interests as well for our technology in other ventures, and more to come once we close that a little bit further. In terms of HP, we are continuing. We continue to do some testing. So HP, remote HPC. So what that means, HPC means not Hewlett Packard Corporation. It means high performance computing, and we're talking here computers with GPUs. And HP have a product which allows to share GPUs utilization across multiple workstations in a local network. And so what we've been doing some testing on the type of traffic that will happen between those machines and whether Neurpac can add value. And I'm pleased to say that there are a number of cases where on AI traffic, we are able to significantly reduce the transmission of that traffic, which happens as just a reminder, Neurpac does it with very little CPU and very little latency added. And so that's of very strong interest. So we are compiling those results, and we will be going back to HP, and to see if they would be interested to continue testing what we've been doing. So that's definitely advancing. We also have some, very interesting use cases turning up. Zebra Technologies. Zebra Technologies, they're known for, like Bluetooth little printers that you wear on your belt. They've also acquired the barcode scanners used by retail shops from Motorola. In fact, I used to use the Zebra printers and the Motorola scanners when I was working at Amadeus for baggage scanning. So when baggage get loaded into containers and into aeroplane, those were the typical devices used as well. Those devices, when they have to load those devices with information about the barcodes they're scanning, etc., that information resides in the configuration file, and where it gets located, the memory is limited. And so it's an interesting use case for Neurpac because if they wanted to store more information, you could use normal compression. The problem is, if you want to use that information that has been compressed, you have to decompress it first. And if you don't have enough memory, you can't decompress the information because you don't have enough memory in the first place. Neurpac overcomes that problem because it does not need to decompress the entire data stream, because the data stream can be read on small packet at a time, decompressed small packet at a time, and transmitted to the scanners to update the configuration of the scanner. So that's a very interesting use case that we are keen to advance further into a pilot with Zebra Technologies. We are also in discussions similarly with the robotics company where they transmit their information over an Ericsson router. We play perfectly in that. And in fact, you may have seen our previous webinar with Ericsson where they tested our product on their router and they said it worked perfectly. It also works over something called SD-WAN, their net cloud exchange. So in terms of, and they even say the person who tested it even say, you had to look within the decimal percentages of the CPU utilization to find Neurpac. So that's how small footprint Neurpac will have on the router. And then in terms of oil and gas, we've been trying oil and gas a number of times, and we think we now have a right target customer for us to trial out our product from oil wells. And this is a very important case for us because we're looking at thousands of oil wells potentially. So we're looking forward to making that trial with them and then potentially expanding to thousands and thousands. So that's pretty much, I think I've spoken to you about everything on this slide.
Yeah, let me add just a couple of quick things. On the Space Force contract, the goal of that is to get us to what's called TRL7, Technology Readiness Level 7, which puts us into a category in which anybody in DoD can use our technology. And it's sort of like the blessing of it. And therefore, we will open up to a lot more opportunities when we get that. The other thing to know there is that SDA wants to move us into phase 3, which is the pre-deployment. That'll be a pretty good sized contract, could be 5-10 million typically. And that's their goal, is to get us into that mode in the fall. Because they want to actually use it. So anyway, in that, and the other point I want to make is about the timing of this. I've said consistently this year, most of what you're going to see in Q1, Q2 is going to be pilots and testing and conversations and blah, blah, blah. And expect the revenue to start in Q3, Q4. It's just how the cycle works. We're talking an inline product. We're not talking something you click on your iPhone and download. We're talking about something you have to test with engineers before they're ready to go ahead and say, deploy it. And so the point here is that's what I've always said here, expect revenue in Q3, Q4 for this stuff. And so Julian, go quick on this because I want to make sure we get to questions, please.
Yeah. Yeah, so we, our partnerships are still going strong. I've just spoken about Trillion, so you've heard about it. Ericsson, the Zebra technology and the robot opportunity actually came through Ericsson, and we also did that testing. Ericsson did the testing of our product on their environment and on their system, and they were extremely pleased. And they want to go further and go deeper and see how far we can take the product, which is excellent news. And Amran Universal was spoken about. L3 Harris, also a very, very important partner of ours. There are a number of opportunities, one of which is to do with the Link 16. Where we are doing remarkably well in terms of data compression. And Iridium is the new entrant that we just added, and in fact, been attending their partner conference out in the Science Museum in London, which was pretty exciting for me. And so we are definitely looking at what partnership. They are very interested in our product because it will allow them to capture market that in the past they would have to farm out to Starlink because they wouldn't have enough of the throughput. So very interested in our solutions, and we are working with them and also with their partners. I'm also engaged with a number of Iridium partners as well. So there is a whole ecosystem there, which is important to foster. So that's my update on where we are with our partners. Anything else to add, Charles?
No, it's good. So unfortunately, we have a hard stop at the hour. So we will take whatever questions, and anybody answering them, please be snappy about it, so that we can make sure we are able to get as many as we can. But go ahead.
So, if we don't give ourselves a multi-billion-dollar valuation, how can we expect anyone else to? I think this is meant to be a
Well,
compliment.
okay. I mean, that's a fair point, but I've got to raise money now because we need money now. All I can tell you is you're not taking a heck of a lot of dilution here at 400, raising a few $1,000,000 at 400, even 20, because and soon to be 500. It's add the numbers up. It's not that much, and it puts money in our pockets to keep going. That's the important thing. We've got to keep rocking and rolling and keep people working and pushing the ball ahead. And it's really clear. One, we're about revenue in Neurpac, and we're about pushing the ball forward in PCM with development.
It took OpenAI 4.5 years to move from GPT-1 to release at 3.5. Do we expect to continue beating their pace to get PCM to production release?
100%. I think we'll get there. Well, for one thing, you got to think about what are they doing? They're building, the first GPT-1 was like 117 million parameters, not that many. I mean, you can put 7 billion parameter models on your laptop. So where they had to go is they had to start using gigantic amounts of compute, and that cost gigantic amounts. I mean, before they came out with GPT-3, they had raised $1 billion. We don't need that kind of numbers. We can do it way more economically, and ours will fit in a freaking peanut when we're done. In terms of a limited purpose one, it can go into a Raspberry Pi probably. So there's no comparison. But how long will it take? I'm hesitant to say, but my goal is by the end of next year we have a commercial product.
Yeah, and it's very tied to funding, right? Like the
Very
more
much
funds
so.
you put behind it, the faster you can get
Yeah.
progress.
Very true. 4 people is not a lot.
Not at all. Do we have current revenue from El Hamrani?
Do we have current revenue from Alamrani? Yes. Yeah, it's right now it's not a huge amount because so far it's just been the one deployment. We are soon going to be doing a second deployment, a bit more significant. We are also working with them on a much bigger deployment. We're talking 550 agents deployed connecting to a controller. So yes, we are going to significantly raise the pace with them. We are in the middle of the RFP discussions with them.
Okay. Can we expect Trilliant to install Neurpac directly onto new meters before they put it in the fields?
Yes. So the goal is to put Neurpac onto new meters, and in fact, what they do, they'll deploy it on a Trilliant supply. They don't manufacture the meter themselves. They supply their little communication module that they attach to the meter, and we will attach Neurpac within that comms module, and that's exactly the goal. But deploying onto new meters, there's a certain amount of lead time because then you need to go into a new customer, new deployment. So that's why I've said that a new metering deployment, AMI 2.0, will not materialize as revenue until next year.
Are there any contracts being negotiated with Ericsson?
Pam?
Not at the moment, but as Julian mentioned, we're in some very good opportunities. The one you're talking about with Square Robotics and the other with Zebra Technologies. And once we we solidify those, then they basically told us that the floodgates will open. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, that's, just so you know, right now, their referral mechanism, they're going to shift, we believe. And once they see, okay, yeah, this works and there's a lot of demand for it, boom. It's like everything in tech.
Some folks are concerned about the lack of meaningful revenue given your amazing technology. What are your thoughts?
I mean, all I can tell you is like what I just said a little while ago, which is no one wanted the SaaS. Well, I shouldn't say no one, almost no one. And we had to come out with a new form, and it's way better, as Julian has expressed it here. 12 hours down to 19 minutes is a not insignificant reduction, right? And so we are now looking at a totally new ball game starting in January. That's what the deal is. And so when you look at it, you say, well, this company's got a long history. How come there's no revenue? Well, yeah, I mean, I think that is absolutely a fair criticism. However, I will tell you that what I've maintained consistently since the release in January is that we are getting there. We have to go through pilots. We have to work it. And that is what it is. And I can't help it. It's an inline product. It goes a bump in a wire, they call it, and it's inside the thing. It's not, and it has to be integrated by an engineer, not something you push a button and you got a bit of revenue. So, but the cool thing is, once it's there, good luck getting it back out again.
How is progress going with Link 16 with L3 Harris development efforts versus those of NC3?
We keep beating our head against that wall, so do they. So one of the things that we've been doing is we've been saying, okay, there's no requirement out there in the government that says we need to make Link 16 faster without changing the hardware. Therefore, what we've been doing, and I've been doing, with help from some of our advisors, I've been going to congressional offices. I've been meeting with chiefs of staff in the Senate and in the House. Met with the deputy chief of staff at lunch with of Mike Rogers, who's who's the chairman of the Armed Services in the House. We are going to force it one way or another. That's not to say we aren't continuing our efforts elsewhere. But what these guys tell us is we have to have a requirement. It's crazy. And it's one of the things they're trying to fix in the Pentagon. Everybody agrees, oh yeah, this would be great, but I don't have a requirement. It can drive you nuts, but everybody agrees you got to have it. It's both, and L3 says it absolutely works. We've tried it.
How soon will you feel comfortable showing PCM to Mag 7?
I think we're getting really close because with 253 patents, we're feeling pretty solid. What we'd like to have is a chunk of money in the bank so we can look them in the eye and say, you're not going to get away with stealing it and waiting while we sue you and run out of money. That's the thing. We have to have money and we have to have patents. Then we're going to be able to tell them.
And then there's a follow-up question on this. Why not simply go to a Mag 7? Too much reliance on DoD?
DoD is, if we get the blessing from DARPA, we're home free. That's it. We don't have to. Everybody's going to know about it. Everybody is looking at this. This is a really high profile contract. Mag 7 will know if we get that contract.
Sorry, I just want to add in that the DoD route is also validation, right? Like when we go in through the door to Mag 7 and we say, hey, the DoD has looked at this, they validate this, they agree with this, and they want to put money behind this concept, it's instant validation. And this is certainly instantly. And that differentiates us from those physicists that come to us, like, for example, the call that we had yesterday, who just seem plain crazy, right? Like we are getting, I think, our ducks in a row in an organized way so that we are taken a lot more seriously and differentiating us from all those AI and tech startups and companies that don't have the backing of the government and the validation of the government when they're approaching these conversations with Max 7. And, there's a lot of physicists out there. There's a lot of people working in AI. There's a lot of tech startups. And this has been really one of our main differentiation and validation points.
Absolutely. I mean, there's literally, I can't think of a better validation proof point than having a DARPA contract. There's literally nothing. And, because we don't have the former, CTO of OpenAI working here, right? Running PCM. So you got to have something like that kind of level of validation that says we're worth billions.
And then we do get taken seriously by the Navy
yeah.
and DARPA because we walk in with Admiral Becker, we walk in with Charles, we have, congressional people involved on higher levels to advocate for us. So it is a different approach than everyone else is taking. And I
Right.
think this will lead us to getting taken a little bit more seriously than an average scientist talking about geometry and,
Yeah.
conceptual.
What if he's listening? So,
No. Yeah, we're not.
all
Not
right.
gonna
Are
do
there any more questions? Because,
So there's a lot more questions.
Oh, okay.
We
Well,
can do a write-up if
we'll do it right. And we'll send it out to everybody who was invited to this. And, we'll field out the questions to whomever's the expert in that.
Well, there was the typical question, when are you going public? When is there the IPO? We didn't get to that one, but we'll send you the generic boxed response via email.
All right. Yep. And thanks, Christy. Thanks back. See
Thanks
that
everyone
popping.
for your time.
All right. And thanks, everybody. Sorry we couldn't get all the questions done, but we promise we'll come back with those responses. So did you copy all the questions?
Paul, can you access those after the call ends?
Yep, we have all of them, and we'll be sure to follow up.
Okay, good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Sorry we only had an hour, but I think I feel like we got you guys a lot of real detail. This is the real stuff, which I hope I try to convey all the time. But it's cool to have a real panel here of people, so it's not just me talking. So
yeah. Once the StartEngine raise goes live, we'll have another webinar so we can get you a little more information.
All right. Thanks,
right.
guys.
All right.
Meet
Bye.
everyone. Take care.
Thank you.